Welcome to the Lit Podcast, presented by Culturally Lit. Culturally Lit is an organization created to amplify and cultivate awareness of the arts of the African diaspora. The Lit Podcast will feature artists and arts programming that enhance the significance of the culture for everyone. Listen and be enlightened. The Lit Podcast is produced by Baobab Tree Studios. Greetings, this is IfeMichelle Gardin. You are at the Elm City LITFest podcast. The Lit Podcast is a celebration of literature, literary arts, and literary artists of the African diaspora. Our guest today is Katurah Bryant, and Katurah's book is ZOLA. It's a process in healing and grief. Katurah is a counselor, a psychologist, a social worker, all the things. Ever since I've known you, you've been always a calm spirit, a healing, like a Zen person. And I, honestly, when I saw this ZOLA, the term first, at Howard K. Hill Funeral Home. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, ZOLA, what is, and I thought, and then when I found out what they were doing, I was like, that's a wonderful asset to have for people that are going through grief of a loved one. Mm-hmm. But first, I do want to welcome you. I was excited about getting to it. So you see, I got all my things.
That's a beautiful thing.
Because there's so much in here. So tell us what ZOLA stands for and how you came about this.
Well, ZOLA is a West African. I think there's a community actually in South Africa. They call themselves the ZOLA community. And ZOLA is a term that means to love. And for me, it means love of self, love of family, love of community, love of humanity. So those are really your healing steps as you are trying to do basically anything. That's the energy in which we should be walking all the time, that, self-care is self-love. And then once you can care about yourself and your vessel is full for self-love, then you have love for family, love for community, love for humanity. And so basically how all of this came about was, I've been in the healing profession for a very, very long time. I've been working in recovery from loss, and the individuals that I was working with, their loss was an active addictive lifestyle, or it was a loss of their mental health. And so, or a combination of both. And so I've always been working in that genre. And so one of the things that really just kind of was disturbing me, especially, in New Haven, and there was a point in time in New Haven, I swear to God, I either knew about a funeral I should have been going to, or I was going to a funeral like every week, it seemed like. And so, my thought was, how do people resolve grief and loss? And at that time, I was really kind of focused on the loss of a person. And so I was on this, Spirit was moving me to reach out to funeral homes. And I was on the steps and I was standing there with Howard K. Hill, and I was like, Mr. Hill, like, what do you all do after people do all of this ritual? Then what happens? And he says, well, no, we don't really have anything really. And he asked me if I had an idea. And I said, absolutely, I have an idea. And he says, well, come talk to me on Tuesday. It was like and a couple of days later. And I said, okay, I will. So I went to talk to him and I shared with him my idea about what I thought could happen. And, he was interested. And so I put together with my company, and we were doing it for about 4 years. He contracted with Impact at the time. And I presented to him, this is ZOLA, and this is what it means. And these are the 7 sessions. And we cut it down to 6, after a minute. But it was at that time, it was my colleagues and, we were all professional people. So life happened to me. Life happened to everybody. And so, he didn't renew the contract, which was fine. And so I had loss of a parent, I had loss of a sibling, I had lost, retirement. I was experiencing a number of life changes. And so in the middle of the pandemic, 4 years later, so in the middle of this pandemic, Spirit woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning and said, Katurah, it's time for you to do ZOLA, but it's time for you to do it differently. And so, being obedient, I just sat down at the computer and I started writing. And the difference was that I was writing this book so that lay people would understand what to do, so that lay people would be able to facilitate the ZOLA Experience 7-session wellness groups. And because you just have to people have group facilitation skills that they aren't given credit for. For example, you have been a community engager all of your life that I've known you, and you know how to communicate in a setting with people. You know how to connect with people. That's all a group facilitator does, is connects with people and allows them to express themselves. And so the difference is that I am training everybody that has a desire to help their family, help their community. And it is something that I had to reframe grief and loss, because the reality is that we have losses every day. We're a day older today than we were yesterday. So we've lost that day. It's never coming back. We lose jobs. People, I have a copyrighted term that's called your lost love object. So your lost love object, as you read, it can be anything. It can be the loss of your body image. It can be the loss of secure housing. It can be the loss of secure food. It can be the loss of geography. Like I experienced a geographical loss when I was 7 years old. My whole world was in Nashville, Tennessee. And when my parents came back from college and we were moving to Seattle, it wasn't, back in the day, it wasn't one of those things, we're going to prepare you to move. It was like, you're going to go for a ride. So it's like, well, okay. And then when I didn't want to ride anymore, it's like, okay, I want to go back to what's familiar. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. And I had a physical reaction to that reality. By the time I got to Seattle, I had eczema. I had never had eczema in my life, but it was at a 7-year-old child having to internalize my anxiety and my fears and all of my emotional self about not being able to be in a familiar, safe environment. And so we experience those kind of things. We don't lend voice to it. And so the whole premise of the ZOLA experience is, one, to lend voice to your human experience. We have human experiences all the time. You've lost a limb. You need to talk about that. How do you talk about that? You've lost a breast. How do you talk about that? What avenue do you have that people will allow you to talk in as frank way as you need to talk? So it lends voice to your human experience. You're homeless. You were homeless from the time you were age 3 to 5. We had a woman in a group. She says, I never thought about that loss, but I was homeless. But I remember being homeless from 5 to like 8. And it wasn't talked about. It was like, okay, you're homeless. And it's like, hello, people. And oftentimes it's those kind of experiences, right? Or I lost a job that I didn't deserve to lose. And you might have gotten compensated, but nobody wants to hear about the fact that I no longer have the career that I wanted. I no longer da 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 da. So we walk around like that, and then those kind of feelings and emotions manifest in different ways. They manifest in anger, they manifest in isolation, they manifest in how we communicate with each other. All of a sudden you're short, you're snappy, you're this, you're that. But we have to lend voice to the experience. And so that's really, how the ZOLA experience came about. And was blessed to write this book. It's copyrighted, and the programs that come out of ZOLA are copyrighted. So there are intellectual property. But I'm willing to train any and everybody. But they have to do it according to the way that you just can't call it ZOLA, and because it'll be different. So my whole thing is we have to begin the healing process. And we needed to do this long before COVID. We needed to, as Black and brown people, we needed ZOLA in 18.
Oh, wait. All right.
1619, okay?
From the beginning.
Right? We have needed a voice, and it really is a entry level to other therapies. I'm a marriage and family therapist and a nurse by training and a licensed addiction specialist. So we have needed a place to, and oftentimes even for us as clinicians, we don't have a structured thing to get people started to talk about loss. And especially for Black people and brown people, indigenous communities, this whole Freudian kind of psychoanalytical kind of thing, we don't get it. We are communal people. We need to be, in a space where we can talk, and that it's non-judgmental, and that it's a safe space. And we work very hard to make sure that we create a safe place for people to express their thoughts and feelings. And it's very interactive, and it works.
I want to say too that, like, as I was reading, like I reflected on because on my life, of course, and like the generations before me, my mother, my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe my mother, and it took me in my in my 40s in therapy, because I have to say, when in my 20s, like I've always been a person that like evolved, changing. I'm always changing my mind. Let me drop this, do this, let me do, because I'm always thinking of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were times when, like in my 20s, I was looking to, when I lived in New York, I was out of school and was on my own living in New York, and there was times when I almost felt like I was doing okay, but I wanted to kill myself. Like I felt those suicidal things. I was like, let me get some help. I don't know what told me let me get some help, but I also felt like once I started therapy, some things, because always felt like my mother was being mean to me, and not realizing that growing up, my mother had me at a age of 17 when she wanted to do something else. And my existence was traumatic for her.
Yeah.
Right. So it not being ready in 1959, like it's not like today when somebody, even, well, I'm sure people go through it today too, but there's more support in place for young mothers.
Oh yeah.
And then it was pressure. Like in 1950, it was pressure. And so, like, then when I got pregnant at 30 with my daughter, I'm like, oh shoot, I got to be responsible for another human, and I'm not ready for this. And I revisited it, over the years. And one of the things I didn't do was share it with friends, because Black people or family, because they like, oh, you know, Black people don't get, we don't do that. We go
Girl,
to
please.
go to here. But you, in addition to leaving it at the altar or wherever you gonna do it, you do have to speak with people, and a lot of times the folks that are right around you are going through their own stuff, so they think you're being away, and it's like, no, it's really, and it wasn't until I felt liberated in my 50s to say, listen, I've been in therapy, and I'm gonna, if I'm feeling some kind of way, I'm getting some help. I don't care what y'all think. I got this way.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm feeling overwhelmed or
Mm-hmm.
however,
Mm-hmm.
I know. And I advise it, and sometimes it's received and sometimes not. But a lot of my relatives are like, "You did what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I didn't, I would have been postal."
Right. But this is a beautiful segue for our community and for every community, because we're not alone in expressing in having an avenue to begin our healing process. And so for us to be able to, sit in a circle and, I'm going to give you things, and you're giving permission as to how much you choose to self-disclose. And it's just an amazing process. Once we do that first session and people begin to share, and then because the whole purpose of the first session is really to validate the richness and the resources in the room. And it's a wonderful experience. It helps the group to begin, because the whole idea of ZOLA is to build communities of support.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're absolutely right. And we just, we are, there's this thing that I talk about, and there's a quote in the book that I say, it's called you either repair or you're going to repeat, right? And so, like, your mother didn't have the opportunity to lend voice to her experience. So there was no repair there. There was no repair for my mother either. My mother was a teenage mom, and she had 2 children before the age of 20. She was 19. She had me. She was, 16, 15, 16, 17 when she had my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there was, it was like, okay, my mother went into a state of depression while she was pregnant with me, because she was in college, and she still was in college or whatever. And she wanted my biological father to marry her, the whole 9 yards. And when the house of cards fell down, but the women, the healing power of the sister circle surround this woman and allowed her to grieve the loss. See?
Mm-hmm.
And they took care of her. They fed her. They took care of her toddler son. They did all of those things. And then when she's about 7.5 months pregnant, my grandmother came home and told her, okay, it's time for you to get up now. You got to start, you got a baby coming in another month, and you got to take care of your son. But that is like the essence of what we're doing. It's like we need to surround each other. We need to support each other's healing process. And we can do this in a non-clinical setting. And it's just an organic and a very natural experience.
I also want to share too, like, what people don't realize, or like, my mother was very closed. Like, she didn't want nobody to know her business,
Oh.
and went through a lot of stuff by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, again, took me till I was an adult to understand that these mood swings and this anger and da 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 da. And it was like, one of the things that you realize that I did when I was in a group was that I'm not the only one
Yes.
going. And it helps to, when you are just, you keep it and you're not in a group setting, you feel like, oh, shoot. Or just when you're not sharing what you're going through.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm not, it's okay to say, I've evolved to it, but it's okay to say, listen, I can't handle this right now, because I got to complete I got to do this. So
Mm-hmm.
until I handle myself, I can't be there for you, or I can't do the thing, because I'm also the oldest child, the oldest grandchild, the 32 kid. Like everybody's like, oh, she'll do it, she'll do it. Like I was like Mikey in the commercial. There's the Mikey, and it was like, no.
Yeah.
There's times when who gonna do something for me?
Yeah.
It was traumatic. I had and look, listen, this brought out so much for me. My mother's mother, my grandmother, God rest her soul.
Who I loved her dearly.
um, so when she started getting dementia, right, and things started happening, my mother and her siblings got together and decided that I would handle her, take her to the doctor and help her do things. And they also came to the conclusion that, okay, she needs to be put in managed care.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was in senior independent living, and doing the transition. This is Annie Huckabee, that grandmother.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She when they everybody knew it was going to happen. We had some places and selected and all that, and it's kind of, you get a call, and they have me responsible for the move, right, when it happens, because some of them are not in Connecticut, they all over the place, and then they're old, they were older, and so some of them were dealing with their own health issues and stuff. So they had a sibling call and decided, well, Michelle will handle it. She the oldest. She got it. Like, she already takes it to the doctor, does things. So go. I said, okay. So then I get a call from one of the places, and they said, you got 72 hours. And I took a deep breath, and I called my mother, who was alive at the time. And she was like, oh, well, do what you got to do. She didn't want to hear it or handle it. And then I called one of my aunts who had a breakdown, was like, oh, wait, what? And like, I called one of my uncles, and then it was like, well, I was like, wait a minute. We all had a meeting. Y'all had a meeting and then invited me to another meeting and made a decision. They had another meeting. Now I'm telling you it's happening. And now it's like, wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand it was their mother. They were all going through whatever they had to go through, but you made this decision.
Yeah.
Now I have to carry it through. Now I tell the people, okay, it was like a day before or something. I was like, all right, I'm gonna come. And so I literally had to make that move, like get her from one place, figure out how am I going to do this? Because I didn't call none of the rest of them, because I was like, first, I didn't want nobody to call her up and tell her what was going to happen. I had to strategize on my own,
Mm-hmm.
right? I do it and then call everybody up and say, okay, this is what happened. I was grateful for, at the time, her one of her caregivers that was coming in. She was like, oh, I work at this place, I'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had the highest anxiety. I swear, I was like, it's my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
who, as growing up for me in Newhall in Newhallville and Dixville, she was like
The
one of
Rock.
the people. She was like who everybody went to. I used to go with her to meetings. She was a PTA. She did community outreach for something for the school liaison, parent stuff. Gave people clothes, food, all that stuff. And then this is a person that has, because of dementia, her she's shrunk in stature, her mind isn't well, and I've been changing her diapers and doing all these things, and now, boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Katurah, man, I literally, when I called everybody up and said, okay, this is what happened today, it's done. I forgot what one of my uncles said, but I cussed him out. Because I was angry that I had to go through that.
Yeah.
Right. And then one of my aunts is asking me about she had like things hidden in a room, and I was like, I'm not going back to her apartment. I put everything in the room that needs to be in the room. Y'all, I'm not doing this no more. And I had to remove myself from them
Mm-hmm.
for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And get some grief counts. Like I got,
Mm-hmm.
because I was feeling like it was heavy.
Yes, it was. It
Woo!
was. And that was, see, and that's what I'm saying is that the beauty of what we are doing, the focus can be anything. And we need to have ZOLA circles for caregivers
Oh
because
my
you do go through that. I mean, I just recently went through that with two parents,
God.
within a year's time. One transitioned and then the other one, she's in a memory care. But I had
Mm,
to come to terms to reality, myself and my siblings, about all of that. And, the hardest part was being the oldest daughter as well, was put on me to clean out the house. That was like perhaps the most traumatic thing that I had experienced in a very long time. And so, but praise God, you got those sister circles that are like, look, y'all got to listen to me. And, for me to be able to, a lot of them are healthcare professionals. And so, that makes it a little bit more natural. But it was traumatic. And so, yes, we do need ZOLA circles for caretakers. We are the baby boomers. We're caught in what we call the sandwich generation. We're dealing with elder issues. We're dealing with our children's issues.
wow.
So, we're dealing with so much. And so the question oftentimes comes, how do we do self-care for us? Those of
Yeah.
us that are in that tender age, how
Yeah.
do we do that self-care? That's why, the whole goal is to have these communities of support. Like once you go through it, your cohort gets an identity, and you have this identity forever. And I understood how important that was in putting this piece together. That how do you keep people connected? You keep them connected by giving them an identity. An identity is so important, and because that connects you to community, that connects you to family. I'm a so-and-so. First thing that we would say, well, who's your family? That's your identity. That's who you're connected to. And so you have a ZOLA family. And everybody coming through ZOLA, they have a family.
And that, what's this chapter? The adult learners, the one that it says adult children learn what they live, adults live what they've learned.
Yes.
Man, because one of the when other people have a parent or sibling pass on, I just know, like when things started happening with my mother, because she also got dementia and things started going south. And at the time I lived in New York and I was commuting back and forth, and I knew a time was coming where I would have to be here and be closer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started getting some counseling because I was like, okay, this is going down. And when I tried to relay that to my brothers, they weren't getting it. They were like, oh no, we can just do this. We can do no.
Now, black men, black men, they're a whole nother
girl.
That's a whole nother thing. But we have ZOLA circles specifically for Black males, Black and brown males. And my sons are involved in that and facilitating those sessions because we need separate sessions for a lot of things. There are certain times when we have co-ed sessions. Mm-hmm. Like we have them for, like in Seattle, they're doing a series around parents who have lost children to gun violence. So there's male and female, but there at that particular session of adults live what they learn, we separate the groups. We separate the gender identification. Those identify as female, go to this group. Those identify as male, you come over here. because we have different ways of self-care. We receive very different messages around this whole thing around grief and loss and rituals and everything, you know. So but we have to allow people their separate space, because a man is not going to cry in front of females. That's not going to happen unless it's something really, really drastic. But if they feel like they got an ounce of control, they're not going to do that. And there's some women that are like that. But we need to give them space. And when we give them their space, they're given permission to experience their emotions, which is something that's very different. And it's amazing that these brothers can support each other in an emotional space. Doesn't mean that you're less than a human being, doesn't mean that you're less than a man, just like it doesn't mean that you're less than a woman. You know, when you're talking about, you know, feeling overwhelmed with giving that responsibility, absolutely. And there was emotions that came with that. And so when we stuff emotions, we know that in Gestalt therapy, that is where we get stuck, is in our emotional space. We don't get stuck in our intellectualizing our experience.
Right.
We can say, oh yes, and then I, you know, call the nursing home, and then I call the Goodwill, and then they just came to get their stuff, and da 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 da. That's here. But but what's here? If I let this go, what's going to happen to me?
What?
Until
the clearing of the space.
That's right. Then it goes like this, you know, it'll come up to about our nose. You get a little singe of the water, you know, it's like, okay, I need to deal with this, right? And then we'll push it back down. But guess what? Until you decide that you're going to take the risk and give yourself permission to deal with it, it's going to be like that. And it's going to come out in so many other ways. It's going to come out in our relationships with each other. It's going to come out in our trust of each other. It's going to come out in so many ways. And we have to work on those issues, period, let alone in the here and now. As you know, indigenous Black and brown people, we have got to. And then, you know, and I look at the counterparts of, you know, our European brothers and sisters, they got stuff too that they need to resolve. This whole thing around, I had planned to do, myself and Mary Harrison. She's a Caucasian woman, and she's been doing some really good anti-racism work. And so we were going to do a ZOLA circle for racial healing.
Whoa, because there are so many people, white people, that are what I've observed is that they don't even feel like they are race. Like, I'm not a skinhead, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, but they don't understand the term microaggression. And that it's not even something that is a conscious thing.
No, it's not. And it's what you learned. Children, if you leave children to be children, they may ask you a question because it's something that's different. My question in those settings is, you know, one of the questions is, when did you become aware that you were different? And when I say you were, whoever's in the room, that you were different. And what was the message that your family gave you about people that were different from you? Right? Because all of us got a message about people that were different from us. And it's surprising oftentimes to people of European history that Black and brown people got messages about people that were European. Oh yeah, we got clear messages. Very clear.
We had to learn that quick.
Yes, because our messages primarily were around survival. Our messages were not around whether or not we were capable or not capable. We knew we were capable. We knew we came from geniuses. We knew we came from kings and queens. but our messages were around survival. How do we survive this environment that is so oppressive? And for people to take personal responsibility for whatever you have gained from the oppression of others, because you're still, no, you might have come here and came through Ellis Island, but you're benefiting. You benefit every day. And how do you lend your voice to stop the oppression? How do you lend your voice to stop the discrimination? If you're truly say that that's not my energy, if you truly are saying that I'm not a biased person, I'm not a racist person, I'm here for humanity, and you know that you are living in privilege. You're living in a level of privilege. So who wants to give that up?
And your ancestors, like, I had to a few times check some folks. I was like, your ancestors came here by choice.
Right.
And when they brought their culture with them, no one tried to take it away from them.
Right. That's right.
If they changed their name to assimilate, that was their choice.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
There wasn't an option,
right,
for people who were brought here,
or people who were already here. When we talk about the Trail of Tears,
the people that were already here, the Native Americans.
Yes, the Trail of Tears is like something that was for all of North America.
Who were told that they were living wrong. Like, you get here and say, "Oh no, never mind." You had to learn lessons from them about living on the land.
Well, yeah. When I saw that movie High on the Hog, I don't know if you saw that. Yes. And they were saying that the sisters had cornrowed, that the rice in their hair, because they knew this ain't gonna be right. So let me just cornrow some stuff up in my hair, because I done got word of, if you get captured, you better come with something, right?
Right.
But when and all of us were impacted by, the whole thing. You have to, at some point in time, ask for forgiveness. And forgiveness is a hard thing to do, because you got to own your stuff. And then whatever's yours, you got to own it. Then ask for that forgiveness, right? Mm-hmm. If it's not yours, then don't own it. But if it is yours and you got ancestral history that you are living on, that you are benefiting from, then you need to lend voice to that. That's why we have this thing about, we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. We don't want to make these little, Caucasian babies feel uncomfortable, or children or adults. It's not even it's a projection from the adult population, because, they keep throwing out this thing, critical race theory, which is a college course, by the way, people. It's not something that is taught in elementary school. However,
Florida taking away math books because
but the reality is that we do still need critical race theory, because the truth has to be told.
Exactly.
If we would leave the children to be children, then they have an affinity for, they don't care what the person looks like. They'll champion, my brown skinned friend, such and such and such. And it's not a derogatory thing. That's just how they identify. They ask the little boy, why is your skin brown? I don't know. My mother said I was born this way. And they say, okay.
Because they see a little boy, another little boy sees another little boy. A child sees another child. They just want to play.
Exactly.
They want to play.
And they know how to make up. If you leave children to make up, you say, okay, you're crying. Why are you crying? Because so-and-so stepped on my foot. Did you mean to step on his foot, so-and-so? No. Well, what do you say? I'm sorry. Okay. What do you say? Okay, thank you. And you go play. They go play. So as adults, children learn to be biased. Children learn to have prejudices because they hear it at the dinner table. They hear it around them. We don't grow up like that. So
Well,
there has to be healing.
They get stimulated by adults. No, you can't play with them.
Exactly. It's like, well, why not? It's like, well, why can't I play with them? They like to play baseball. I like to play baseball. Like, and they're good at baseball, and I want to learn from them because they're real good at baseball. So why can't I play with them?
Right.
Because they have melanin in their skin. Really? Well,
Mm.
I don't have much in mine, so and I'm trying to get some. So I don't know. That's why this work is universal and it's so important. And we have international ZOLA ambassadors. We have ambassadors that we're training in South Africa, the Philippines. We have a young man that wants to become an ambassador in Ghana. And, I do offer scholarships for some of these things. And so that, you have to write why should we give scholarships? And so, I usually we take it from book sales. We take it from different avenues that we have that we can offer it. And, but, it's one of those necessary things. And, just partnering with organizations like Africa Town. Africa Town in Seattle is an interesting thing because their whole thing is around community development and business and that whole thing. But their whole thing was, we know that there's a lot of money coming into the community, and they wanted the community to be ready. And so they wanted this whole healing process to happen so that when we talk about coming together to do business, that you'll have a sense of trust with me. So,
oh my gosh, what the healing and that in and of itself.
Yeah.
The many times that resources and opportunities historically have been presented to our community, and we won't I mean, even to this day, Katurah, there's a lot of resources right now that are being offered to the arts and offered for racial healing and racial equity and blah blah blah. And some arts organizations and in social service organizations don't have an idea of how to utilize it or what to do. They just know it's some money out there.
Right.
Well, it's like you could collaborate with somebody.
Yeah.
And then more is better.
Oh yeah. I'm collaborating with somebody on a grant as we speak. More than one.
But there are still those who are like, well, I don't want to do that. Like,
and this is competition. Yes, we have to, but we have to. This is the common ground that is formed when people come into the ZOLA experience. We have a common ground. By the time you leave, you have a common ground. By the time you leave, there's a greater sense of trust. There's a greater sense of knowing about each other. And so therefore, there's a piece in there that we do that really says, help me with this. This is an idea that I have. And the group says, we can help you with that. We'll help you with that.
I want to add to, it's spiritually based.
It is.
It's like that in and of itself is calming. So, I'm very happy. Like, I wanted to ask too, is there any, because everybody got their beliefs out here. And it's like we're all believing in something.
Even if your belief is in nothing.
Exactly.
You have a belief.
Exactly. So has there been any kind of opposite? I don't want to say opposition, but anybody has something to say about it being, because it's obvious in here. And personally, I feel like that helps. That's a foundation for everything.
Right. So in the training, I've kind of used a different language. So in that second session, when we talk about your spiritual walk, so we now say, what is your philosophy of life? And how has your philosophy of life helped you? And your philosophy of life can be faith-based, it can be spirituality-based, it can be self-based.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, how has it helped you? So absolutely. But my energy is that of, I'm being a very spiritual person. I'm not so much wedded to a certain dogma. But I am a very spiritual person. I believe in God. I believe in the creator. I believe in the ancestors, angels, and the universe. All of those things. I believe in meditation. I read the stuff from Buddhism. I read stuff from all different kinds of philosophies that people function under. And part of that is the fact that as a therapist, I think that I have to be open. I do not say that I am a Christian-based therapist or an Islamic-based therapist or whatever. I say that I'm a therapist. So when my professional hat is on,
Mm-hmm.
then it is my obligation to, whatever crosses a threshold, I need to know something about it. So in my preliminary thing, it's like, what is your philosophy of life? What is your spiritual walk? What does that mean to you? And if they say, I'm an atheist, agnostic, and whatever they say there are, I need to understand just the premise of it and be willing, when something comes up in session, that I would say, well, explain that to me. I can be real stupid in therapy because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one to say, you know how to heal. You know everything you need to know about yourself.
It's guiding.
That's right. And so I'm like, I don't understand. Explain that to me.
Mm-hmm. Because
And
there's also people that are very much into their faith. So
yes,
anything outside of their faith is
right.
is is also a change. Like,
Mhm.
because we've
But you
changed.
got to respect, you have to respect where people are.
Yep.
And, meeting people where they are is that's an important piece. But also, it also means that you're meeting them where they are when they walk across your threshold, and they recognize it because they came to the group or they came to you for service, that there's a piece of them that says, I'm willing to change. So
Mm,
sometimes the piece is minute and microscopic. So therefore it's my job, in my other hat as a professional person, to help to magnify that piece that's in them. And I'm not giving them anything other than what they would choose to have, because I use that word choose and choice, and I let people know that there's certain things that are common to every human being, is that we make choices every day. We make choices all day. We make choices every day. I could have chosen to not show up today. You would have been like, well, where's my guest?
mm-hmm.
Or I could have, but I made the choice to show up today. You make a choice whether you want to drink or not drink, and you know that that's an issue for you. You make a choice as to whether you choose to do a line or don't. You make a choice whether you choose to take your medication or not. Do you choose to eat right today? Green, a nice balanced diet with lots of greenery on your plate? Or are you going to eat ice cream sundae and you're diabetic? Those are choices you're making.
Mm-hmm. It's options.
Absolutely.
And it's so it, people don't want to walk themselves through the process all the time. Or
Who wants to take personal responsibility?
yeah.
So, woo, as Flip Wilson used to say, and I'm dating myself, who the devil made me do it? They made you do nothing. You made a choice. Now, the consequence might be negative. The consequence might be hard. Like, your mama say, hard head, soft behind. Okay.
Right.
So there are consequences to every choice that we make, positive and challenging consequences. It's not that it's negative, it's just it's going to challenge you in a different kind of way, right? The
Mm-hmm.
positive ones, and sometimes the positive ones challenge you in a different kind of way,
They
but
do.
those feel good. But,
And-
we just have to be ready. We just have to be ready.
right. So have you, from post-COVID to pre-COVID, have you found more people embracing it or just not? Because you had a version of it before COVID, right?
Say that again.
I said, like, for the experience or the sessions, maybe the sessions, because you were doing it before COVID. So and then you wrote it.
Yeah.
And then post COVID, have you found a shift, of more, because people, there's so much emotion and so many things came out in that 24 months or whatever it was.
Yeah. It did.
It's
and it's still, but see, it really hasn't changed much, because we've been going through loss
all the time.
People, I've tried to reframe loss and grief. Loss and grief is one of those cycles of life. We experience loss, and the natural emotion is grief. That's a natural emotion. Just like if you win the lottery, what is the natural emotion? It's elation, it's happiness, it's excitement, right? So it's not God gave us emotions. And so to cry, some people cry when they're happy. Some people cry when they're sad, but they're an expression. Tears are an expression of emotion. And we have to, at some point in time, embrace the reality that we are emotional human beings, that emotions are gifts from God. Because if we did not, and we stayed up in our head and didn't have a form to release, then we would implode. Where are we going to do this? Where are we going to do this? And when you don't, that's when you see violence, you see domestic violence, you see community violence, you see people talking harshly to each other, you see people distrusting each other because we haven't dealt with our emotional selves.
Are there sessions for children?
Well, at this moment, I'm doing young adults. So they're like 16 and above. We have the ZOLA Experience because we have a number of young adult circles going on in other parts of the country. My son and I and my daughter, we are developing a ZOLA circle for children. So we're talking children between like 5, once they can begin to articulate themselves a little bit, but can use different mediums like drawing and it'll be a little bit more interactive. I mean, I've been giving much thought to it. It'll be more role play, more interactive, that kind of thing. But, I think that, I'm having a little family crisis right now. And I shared with you earlier that, my 9-year-old granddaughter, she's was going through some stuff. And, she wanted to speak to her grandmother. So she had her dad called her. She was crying and she was, how the kids get when you're that kind of cry. And so it's like, I had to, come on, let's breathe. So we breathed through it. And then, we talked about it. She was able to talk about it. And I told her to write her mother a letter and this, that, and the other thing, and draw a nice picture and, about how much she loves her and misses her, whatever. And then the next day when she came to see me, she was like, Mima, I'm sorry that I called you. And, and I was crying. And I said, like I told you, I said, I'm going to teach you a new word. It's called reframe. And we're going to reframe that so that it speaks your truth. It's like, say, Mima, thank you for being there and loving me when I needed you. Yeah. And that is the language that we have to give our children. To say to a child, oh, stop crying. Well, I'm afraid, or I got blood going down my knee and it hurts. It's like, but we have got, as adults, we have got to change our language to our children as well.
Or
Because
saying, you're a big boy, you're a big girl, you can take this. And it's
right.
like, that carries over.
It does. So what do we do when we're injured as adults? Emotionally injured, physically injured. We hold on to it. We don't want to tell anybody. And especially for Black women, we think that we're supposed to be the strong one.
Oh, girl, whenever somebody says that, oh, you a strong Black woman. No, I'm not. No, I will not. I'm not strong. I need some help. I know when I need some help. I'm not carrying anybody's loads. I got my own loads.
Right. And sometimes when you ask them, it says, well, what does that mean? I ask people, like, what does that mean? That you're saying to me that I'm this strong Black woman. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that I don't need space to release my feeling of stress, that I don't need to de-stress, that I don't need help, that I don't need a circle of people around me, that I don't need my sister circle, my brother circle, that I don't need that? I do need that. So it's not so much that I am strong, it's just that I am using my resources. And therefore you see me doing things and moving through things that you're like, how am I supposed to be doing all of that? Well, I have help.
Yeah. And one of the other terms that I question is when someone says, oh, queen. It's like, queens are rulers. They give orders.
Yeah.
And a lot of times solo or with a king who also gives orders.
Hello. But like, I'm not so, I kind of.
I'm feel as I've gotten older.
We are queens.
Some kind of way about that term.
Yes.
If you want to own that, then you own it.
Yes.
But for me, I'm not real comfortable with saying, oh, I'm a queen. Like, because I'm not giving nobody no orders. Yeah. I'm really not in a place to order you around.
I said that, I'm an elder.
Yeah.
I embrace my elder status. I do, because I've earned my elder status. I got wisdom from my elder status. And so, you can, please put a handle on my name. Don't be 25 and call me Katurah, please.
Yeah.
Because, I'm as old as your grandmother, in some cases, your great grandmother. So, yeah.
That too, because there's a generation of, we can have a whole nother hour on them. Just like, where does the level of respect come from? And and even though you're 20, 25, 26, whatever you're going through, every year you have a birthday, you're getting closer to here.
Yes.
I'm 62, you're getting closer to 62. So don't call me old. I'm an elder.
That's right. And I can give you, things that I can give you that no one else can. I think some of that might have happened in the school system when they allowed children to start calling their teachers by their first names. I was like, what? No. No. But I just want to say a little bit about the new publication that I have.
Yes, talk about that. I was going to say, what's the next? What's the next?
Okay, let's start all over. So I would like to spend just a little bit of time talking about my newest publication. And it is now on Amazon. And it is the ZOLA Experience, a journal journey for life. Okay. And this is my first self-published document. And it's more than a journal, and it's more than a book. There are 13 short stories in there with life lessons and things for you to ponder. There are affirmations. There is space for you to self-express. There are beautiful pictures in here for you to contemplate and ponder. I'm a beach person, so you're going to see lots of beach. You're going to see beach pictures in here, but
Yeah, some
you
of our
know,
faves.
and there's like this one. Like look at this one. This
Wow.
is actually at West Rock.
Wow.
In New Haven. I have pictures from the beach. I have pictures from my travels down south. And I was telling you, and there's, my thing is butterflies. Like I really honor butterflies.
And you talk about the significance of that in the ZOLA book.
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
And the evolution of the butterfly. So I want to advise everyone to get the book and hold up the second publication. Yes, they're on Amazon.
Yes.
You got the guide here. You can contact them for the ZOLA Experience for your organization, for your if you want to train, and get the journal for your personal.
Yes.
use.
So if you're interested in all things ZOLA, go to our website, which is www.thezolaexperience.com. You'll be able to get books. It'll link you to the Amazon site to get the books. It'll also give you an opportunity to sign up to go to have the ZOLA Experience 7-session wellness experience. And once you go through that, then we give you the opportunity, if you would like, to become a ZOLA ambassador for your community. And so that's how it works. I'm in my professional education, my professor always taught that, if you're going to be a good family therapist, then you need to go to therapy. And so that was a requirement that we had when I was at Southern. And, they didn't want to know, they just want to know that you had a therapist. And I was in, so I was in therapy the entire time and continued. I was in before, but I continued to go back and forth. So like everybody should.
And I do too.
Absolutely. It's not a forever I'm in. It's like, you get your wings back and then you go flutter around some more and then come back.
That's it.
Wow. In the hands, yes.
Thank you so much, Katurah. It's been a very enlightening conversation.
Thank you.
And blessings for continued healing.
Thank you, my sister.
Throughout the world, because you all over the world.
Yes. So peace and blessings, and thank you. And thank you all for listening to our conversations that generally Ife and I would have just sitting around having tea or beverages.
Yes.